This video is sponsored by Cake Wallet, the easiest open source wallet to store Bitcoin, Monero, and Litecoin securely on mobile and desktop devices. When buying, selling, and exchanging crypto or trading for gift cards, Cake Wallet ensures privacy and security, giving you the keys to your coins. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Randi Hipper Show. I'm your host, here today on a lovely Friday. We're going to talk to a lovely guest, but right before we get into our guest, make sure you guys smash the like, subscribe to the channel, and share this out with friends so more people can learn about our guest. And also, as you guys are saying hello and smashing the likes in the chat, you're checking out our lovely sponsors, both eToro and Cake Wallet. Make sure you check out those links in the live chat as well as the description. I'm not going to waste any more time. We have James Seyffart on the show from Bloomberg, and he's been absolutely killing it in the media space. So thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. All is well.
Good. You have, like, you know, the nice hair going today. It's very shiny, James, and you're always shining bright in this space. But I feel like every time I see you do an interview, every time you're tweeting, it's about news. It's straight up business. But I want to know who you are, James. So we're going to rewind a little bit in the James timeline and go back to high school, James. What were you up to, and what did you think your life was going to lead up to?
Yeah, high school, I was a soccer player and distance and track athlete. So that was primarily what my life revolved around, in school, obviously. But for the most part, I was most interested in soccer and track and field.
Track and field. Were you doing that from when you were really young, or is something you just liked in high school and you joined a team and went for it?
Yeah, so soccer I played from when I was really young, and then I kind of just joined the track team when I was in middle school, basically because a girl I liked was doing it, and I found out I was really good at track. So I ended up being pretty decent at it in high school and went to college and ran D3.
Wow.
Cross country, indoor track, and spring track for all 4 years of college.
Was the girl impressed?
I guess. I don't know. We dated for a little bit.
Oh, so she
long time
was
ago. It was middle
impressed.
school. Middle school. I mean, I'm 32
James.
now, so we're going back a long ways.
Wow, James picking up girls with track and field in middle school. Amazing. And you kind of went through high school. Were you nerdy at that time? Were you into media at all? Did you have any sort of, like, kind of the same likes that you do now?
Yeah, no, sports was my number one interest for the most part, and that was it. I was not, I guess I was a little nerdy in a sense, but for the most part, I was more into, like, I wasn't a football player, obviously, so I wasn't that full blown into sports. But like I said, soccer and track, those were the things that my life mostly revolved around in my high school days.
Where did you grow up?
New Jersey. I grew up in South Plainfield, New Jersey. I still live in New Jersey. I'm in St. Louis right now visiting my girlfriend, but New Jersey, born and raised.
Yeah, Jersey. So we're close. Jersey, it's all about, like, the teams and who everyone was hanging out with. And, like, when you were growing up, the Jersey Shore was coming out too, and, like, all these types of shows. So what was it like? Because you're in the media space now, and the media itself, TV, how everything is done, was really kind of transformative when you were growing up and all these reality shows were coming out. So what was that experience like for you to see kind of the birth of social media?
Yeah. So, like, I mean, back in the day, I was big on MySpace. Obviously, Facebook became really big when I was in, like, around that age that we're talking about here. I was always down at the Jersey Shore, so it was nothing like the show in my experience. But ultimately, because I didn't really go to Seaside Heights, which is where that show was filmed, but for the most part, yeah, it kind of kept people away in a sense, because people were like, I don't want to be around that stuff.
It's true. It literally had the
wrong
reverse
crowd,
effect.
in my view, I guess you could argue.
Yeah, everyone had that reverse effect with the Jersey Shore and type of reality shows like that. But MySpace. So how old were you when MySpace came out?
I don't even know. That was like middle school age.
Middle school.
Around the same age I started doing track, I guess. I think that's when I had a MySpace. I don't even know. It might even went into, like, yeah, I think it was around then, into early high school. High school is when I started using Facebook, I think.
And, you know, I'm not as educated on the MySpace because it was a little bit before me, but were you mostly, like, was it like tweeting? What kind of content were you and your friends posting on MySpace?
I don't even know. Pictures, videos, sharing music.
More Facebook type?
Really? Yeah, even less interactive than Facebook for the most part. It was just like your own personal stuff, posting your own pictures. Yeah, it's very similar to Facebook. Yeah, I guess you would say not like Twitter in my experience. And then it became like a music sharing site for a little while, and now it's like, I don't even know what it is now.
I don't even know if MySpace is around anymore, which is so funny because it's not even that long ago that you were experiencing MySpace and all these other websites, and they're kind of just faded out. It's like the natural evolution of social media. So you were kind of getting into media when you were in middle school, seeing the evolution of things, and you were doing track and field. By the time you got to college, you were applying to college. What was that like for you? Where did you want to go? And did you pick a major surrounding soccer? Because you said you played D3, or were you looking to kind of choose a career path?
Yeah, so for some reason, I don't know why, I really wanted to go to a Boston college. So I
That's
actually
cool.
applied to a bunch of Boston colleges, BC, Northeastern. I actually got into them, but the tuition was really high, and I had scholarship opportunities there where I ended up going to TCNJ, and I ran cross country, indoor track, and spring track at TCNJ. I was being recruited to run there,
Wow.
and tuition was way cheaper, and I was getting a bit of a scholarship, so it kind of made the deal for me because I didn't want to have hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt to go to Boston College or Northeastern. So that was my deciding factor, essentially. Yeah, I went to TCJ, public state school, the old Trenton State. So I didn't even leave New Jersey. But yeah, I distinctly remember like calling up the financial aid offices at BC and be like, what would we qualify for if we came here? And they were just basically like, yeah, you don't qualify for anything. And I was like, oh God, all right, not happening. So here we are.
Maybe it was,
I wouldn't change it because
yeah.
one of the reasons I started at Bloomberg was because one of their target schools for what I was used to do at Bloomberg was TCNJ. So here we are.
And what was that previous, like, what were they targeting exactly?
So there's an office down in Princeton, New Jersey, which is right next to where TCNJ is, and they just target good business students. So I studied finance and accounting. I
Yeah,
always
okay.
wanted to go into business. I think I went in as an economics major, actually, and I ended up changing that to finance and accounting. But I almost always knew I wanted to work in finance. I was always interested in business. So yeah, that and I. There was part of me that wanted to become a doctor. My grandfather was a surgeon. He was like, "Do
Oh,
not go into medicine. Insurance sucks." And so I ended up
he's not
not
wrong.
going that route.
He's not wrong. At least he took his advice and kind of went a different way. But you're running track. You're like very focused on cross country, which again is a lot. Cross country is a lot of like mental resilience that goes into that. A lot of patience. And then you have finance as your major now, so that's a lot of knowledge being thrown at you. A lot of things you have to sort through, and it kind of teaches you a lot, but not too much that they don't want you to know about the system. What was the finance class like? Like, exactly were they teaching you? Why did you find it interesting?
Uh, honestly, to be honest, for me, college for the most part was relatively easy.
That's good.
And it set me up well for my job now. I had some really good teachers that just go over the basics of like finance in general, economics, all the real basic stuff that you can think of, time value of money, all that stuff. I mean, for the most part, I learned the basics of everything that I would need to know in my job, but it was nowhere near the level that I would need to be successful or to do what I'm doing now today. So ultimately, after college was when I did a lot of my learning. So when you go into the workforce, you kind of like learn the basics, the ones and zeros of how that actual job works. And then I also took a bunch of certification exams. So I took the CFA, the CAIA, and that was a huge learning experience for me as well. So I would say the combination of going to a state school, honestly, sure, it's funny. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, you did a sport like year round in college. Like that must have been hard with schoolwork." And honestly, I found the exact opposite problem. Like when I was injured and not practicing or training for races and things, my schedule was like fluid and I just wouldn't do my work. So like when you have like, I have practice at this time, I have lifting at this time, I have to do all these things. It's like, okay, I have this much time to get my work done for school, and you just get it done. And then you're injured and you don't have any of those things. And I'm like, oh, I'll just do it eventually. And I'm a big procrastinator unless I have a deadline. So honestly, being on a team in college was probably one of the most helpful things I probably did for my college grades and college career.
That's actually amazing. And I relate to that so much because I love being on the grind. I loved going to school. And then I was like around a junior when the COVID pandemic hit. So I was so used to going into school every day. I was tutoring after. I was getting home at like 5 p.m. and I had time to do my homework things. And then when everything stopped, I was looking around like, what do I do with myself? And then you kind of just lack effort to want to do something. And that's why I created Miss Teen Crypto, and that's a whole other story. But to hear you say that, I relate so much. And I think even what cross country I was kind of touching on before, did you find that really peaceful? Did you find it like a kind of a meditation? Some people say when they run, it's very like opening for them.
Yeah, I mean, first, what were you tutoring? What topic did you tutor on?
I was doing math and I was doing physics and a few other things. It was basically like whatever someone needed help with, I was able to just do because I was like a complete freaking nerd. I loved doing school. I loved homework for some reason. I loved studying. I used to make study guides, and everyone used to hit me up for the study guides. Like, how do I get this done? Craziness.
Yeah, I have one of my best friends who I met, who was my teammate in college, is a physics teacher in New Jersey, actually, in high school. But physics was probably my favorite class in high school. But I don't really use it at all in finance and business. But yeah, running, honestly, that's my therapy for the most part. Like when I can't run right now, I have a pulled hamstring.
Oh no.
I hadn't played soccer in a couple of years, and I played for Bloomberg's corporate team a couple weeks ago, and 6 minutes into the game I pulled my hamstring, so I'm not really able to run right now. But that said, yeah, I'm one of those people that just loves endurance activities, and just exercising in general is how I stay sane, if you will. Yeah. Yeah, that's I like, so a lot of people when they run and exercise, they listen to music and things like that. I'm one of those people that, like, when I'm going out for a run, I nothing. It's just me and myself. So I don't listen to any music, which a lot of people think is insane, but that's my space to be alone and think. And honestly, so my job right now, I write research on a lot of different things. Obviously, a lot of it is revolving around these Bitcoin ETFs and different ETFs. Some of my best ideas come about while I'm out on a run. So
yeah, it's like shower
still
thoughts.
Using those things these days. Exactly, shower thoughts. It's similar to shower thoughts, but better for me.
Yeah, I think definitely I feel like when you have like music on, when you're supposed to kind of like do things naturally, because we didn't always have like earbuds in when all these people were training for a track and field. People were just in the zone. And I feel like music, it kind of takes over your thoughts where you can't hear your own thoughts, if that makes sense. And you're kind of
cheating in my mind.
Exactly. It's kind of distracting you and keeping you on like some different type of vibe. Like if you put on sad music, that's what you feel. If you're happy music, that's what you feel. But if you're just running and doing your own thing, you're kind of in control of yourself. And that's, I think, how the thoughts really come about, is that peacefulness that it gives you. Are you running on the street, or are you like going to a field somewhere or a treadmill?
Trails, street, wherever. I generally avoid the treadmill unless it's like icy out or anything like that. I haven't been training the way I want to, but this year, once my leg is healthy, I'm going to try to ramp back up and get back to some serious mileage. It was the COVID. Honestly, you talked about COVID, like everything kind of settled down. You didn't have as much to do. That was the same for me, and I got back into running again for a couple of years, which was really nice. It's just another thing to keep your head on straight, I guess, if you will, which I'm hoping to get back to this year. We'll see.
I think that period of time where that lockdown initially happened and everybody was scared to just breathe or do anything is really when people either capitalized on themselves or let themselves go, because I think because of this, there's obviously a huge mental health epidemic. And some people came out of this like totally messed up, that they're scared to go outside or they're just not as socially aware anymore, versus like if other people like you and I kind of were like, okay, we got to do something with ourselves, and kind of like created our own productivity, which I think kind of deterred us from going that like bad route. And I feel like that was a huge thing. And you see who did that and who didn't.
I went the bad route a little bit in some regards. During the first couple of weeks of COVID, like me and my buddies would get on like Zoom essentially and hang out and do different things. And I was doing too much drinking by myself. Granted, I was over 21 at the time, so it's not that crazy. But yeah, I had to like everyone. I felt like everyone was in there, and everyone and their mother was like, "Oh yeah, let's get on and hang out and have a drink together." And yeah, that was just a bad situation for me personally. So after a couple of weeks of that, I stopped. But for the most part, I developed some healthy habits, but there were some unhealthy habits too. So everything was work from home. So like it's easy when you're in an office and you go in and you're working and you go home and sometimes you might answer emails, but it's like off. And then when we went to COVID, I actually had the opposite situation where like I basically never stopped working. So like I would wake up, do work. I might have gone for a run or workout in the middle of the day, or like go for a run and eat something, and then I'd log back in. and I'd be like, oh, I'll do this after dinner. And then I'm just like literally just working like 16-hour days, which was bad. I got into a really bad habit of just never logging off. So I started having to form healthier habits when working from home. So
You're
yeah,
very
that was an
self-aware.
interesting situation.
You're very
Yeah.
self-aware, James. I like that about you.
Uh, uh, Looking back, it's easy to be self-aware. Right now, it's not as easy to be. It's not as easy to be self-aware in the present.
I mean, but you were able to quit your habit, and you were like, you acknowledged, like, okay, maybe I'm not doing the right thing,
Took a
and you,
while.
yeah, but at least you did. But that's self-awareness. Like some people don't just it goes right over their head. They just keep going. They're like, nothing's wrong, nothing wrong. But you clicked in, and I like that. So when did you actually start to hear about Bitcoin? Was this like after you got the Bloomberg job, or did you hear about crypto like earlier than that?
Yeah, so I have a good story for you. When I was
Yes.
at TCNJ, my freshman year, we had, I'll set the stage. We had basically the way it was everyone had a roommate, and then they also had 4 suite mates. So everyone had a roommate, and then 3 rooms shared a bathroom situation.
Yes. Yeah.
One of my suite mates, my freshman year, in the spring of freshman year, came to me and my roommate and was like, guys, look, there's this thing. I wanted get internet money, and we used it on this site called Silk Road, and I was just like, whatever. So he downloaded Bitcoin mining software on my college laptop my freshman year. And so I was mining Bitcoin with my laptop in spring of 2011.
Oh my
But
God.
I'm convinced my laptop crashed like a couple weeks after that, and I lost a 12-page paper. So my assessment of Bitcoin until like 2016 was like that thing is the thing that ruined my computer that one time. But I just never really told anyone at the time because I didn't
That's
want to say like I
insane.
allowed somebody to download this random software and it crashed my computer. So I only told my parents like recently, a couple years ago, that I'm pretty sure that's what happened. But yeah, I had to get a new computer, and it was a nightmare. So that was my first interaction with Bitcoin.
So did you like you had no clue what it was? He was just like, just download this and mine this internet monies and you'll be okay.
Yeah, he was like, can I use your laptop? Just plug it in, and you don't really have to do anything. You can pause it if you need to do other stuff, and then like I'm gonna use the internet money to buy things on this site. And that was all it was. I didn't really think anything of it. I was like, yeah, I could do you that favor.
So
Um,
where is this kid?
no clue.
No
I tried
clue.
to reach out to him in 2017. I couldn't find him. He's deleted his LinkedIn profile. He's nowhere online. I won't say his name. So I'm assuming
He's
maybe he
probably
has
a
a bunch
mega
of Bitcoin
Bitcoin
stuff.
billionaire and
But
he's out of here.
if it was on the Silk Road, it's gone, and the U.S. government got it and sold to somebody else. So I don't know exactly where that money went. But yeah, he was mining Bitcoin when I was a freshman in college.
That is insane. So you never like checked back into this thing. You didn't even do research on it. You were like, who cares? That's amazing. And then you move forward. You're like in college. You're in finance, and did you get scouted by Bloomberg before you graduated?
Well, I mean, I applied. I interned with Bloomberg. So I interned with a hedge fund the summer before my junior year, and then I interned with Bloomberg the summer before my senior year in their
That's
data
amazing.
department. Um, and so when I went back for preseason before my senior year, while I was in preseason for cross country, I actually got a call from Bloomberg with a full-time job offer to start once I finished. So when I went into before my senior year started, I had a full-time job offer lined up with Bloomberg, so I knew that's where I was going. Um,
Wow.
but I didn't get back into Bitcoin until so I worked on mutual funds, ETFs, hedge funds, those types of things for Bloomberg. And actually, Kathy Wood at ARK Invest, we had known her. She actually, Kathy was my first official client visit that I ever went on for Bloomberg before
Wow.
she had any money in her ETFs back in 2014.
That's
Um,
insane.
but she's also the one that got me back into Bitcoin. I was at a traditional finance ETF mutual fund conference for Morningstar, which is technically a Bloomberg competitor in some ways, and we were in Chicago. And she was up on stage presenting her Bitcoin white paper. She wrote a white paper on why Bitcoin she thought it was important, and
Wow.
I read that. And so in 2016 is when I started taking it more seriously and looking into Bitcoin. Was like, this maybe that thing that my college roommate was doing in 2011 wasn't that stupid. And that's when I took it more seriously.
Wow, that's insane. Kathy Wood onboarding you. That's crazy. So at this trad conference, when she brought up crypto and brought up Bitcoin, what was the energy like in the room? What was your energy like?
I don't remember it that well. I took the white paper. She left the white paper at the back of the room, so I probably have that somewhere.
Ooh.
And there was a lot of questions. I remember just learning, and I was like, I need to do my own research on this. So from a personal perspective, I did my own research and bought my first like a couple few sats, I guess, at some point in early 2017. And then I actually left our data department. So my job when I was at Bloomberg at that time, I was the one that like worked with all the fund companies, these administrators, these accounting agencies, these custodians to get all of the information on these ETFs and mutual funds, you name it, onto the Bloomberg terminal. And then in 2017, I moved to Bloomberg Intelligence, the research department of Bloomberg, to basically write research about those funds that I was covering. And I also started working with our commodity strategist, Mike McGlone. And basically, right when I joined, he was like, "Do you know anything about crypto? Like, this is getting big." So this is the fall of 2017 when things were going crazy. And I was like, "Do I? Boy, do I!" So basically, I started with him to cover what was going on with cryptos, and he started covering Bitcoin and Ethereum. Really, were the main two that he started covering at the time. So we started writing research on cryptocurrency from a commodity strategy point of view.
Wow. So that was 2017. So you were watching Bitcoin run all the way up to 20K and come right back down. So what did you guys feel about it then? And did you guys think it was still a legitimate asset because of the drawdown?
Yeah, so our first coverage was in November, like the first real like market calls on Bitcoin, and Mike McGlone, who still works at Bloomberg now, he does a little bit less covering crypto, still touches upon it. Basically wrote a piece in late November, early December calling for Bitcoin to crash and said it was a massive bubble. Which ultimately ended up being correct, but I'm never going to forget the vitriol that he faced on Twitter and different things because everyone was attacking him. It was like if you said anything bad about the space, you got attacked by like thousands of people. But his call ended up being correct, so he doubled down at the end of December, and then basically, he called for it to crash in the next month or something, or I don't remember exactly what the call was, but he ended up being correct. And he's also been a raging bull at different times for Bitcoin. So it was interesting. We had to tone back some of his negativity in the way that he was doing. So it was me and this guy, Kevin Kelly, who went on to start Delphi Digital, which is a big company in the space now. But he also worked with us at Bloomberg at the time covering this stuff. So he got the call right. He called it a bubble, said it was going to crash, and it did.
Dang, man, Mike killing it with the calls. And then he became an extreme bear. Was that because of price action, or was that only because maybe he didn't believe in the asset and its purpose?
No, he's run a mine, like he's done his own, he's run his own nodes before. Like he knows his stuff. He's a much older guy. I think he might be in his 60s now, early 60s, late 50s. So really smart, really gets in the weeds. And I wouldn't say he's a major bear. He was just bearish in December of 2017, which was the right call, to be honest. So yeah, he's had some correct calls over time, and he's had some really wrong calls, but yeah, so my work with him, covering it from a commodity strategy point of view, combined with my expertise in the ETF industry and mutual fund and just fund industry in general, is basically like how I became very knowledgeable when it comes to the overlap of those two things, so funds and crypto assets or digital assets.
100%. You have a lot of experience, but for yourself, I mean, going through this journey, what did you believe about Bitcoin? Were you thinking about it just from the price aspect, or were you also thinking about like those fundamentals that maybe, I'm not sure if Kathy Wood brought it up, but to her bringing a white paper of why Bitcoin matters. Did you think about why Bitcoin mattered, or was it just like, research, whatever, I'll stick to my job?
No. I was a believer. I won't say I'm a Bitcoin maxi or a DeFi maxi in any way. I'm a traditional finance guy that understands more about DeFi than most traditional finance guys.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not a DeFi expert or an expert on Bitcoin, but I was always a believer. Like I said, I bought Bitcoin in early 2017 for the first time. Not allowed to buy anymore, really, because of conflicts of interest for my research. But for the most part, I'm a believer in Bitcoin and a lot of the things that it does. But I stay neutral for the most part in my research. But that said, I have like a slight
trad bias.
Outlook. I have a slight positive outlook for Bitcoin and digital assets in general. I think there's a place for them. But time will tell, I guess.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think definitely the legitimacy, I guess people could say, is being brought to the space. Do you think ETS legitimized crypto, or do you think it was legit before that?
I mean, I thought it was legitimized a little bit before that. What I think it was the problem is the regulatory clarity in the space. There was
Yeah.
no understanding of like what the regulations are. There's still no real understanding of what the regulations are going to be. But adding the ETFs, getting approved, adds a little bit of clarity, particularly for people who are like, I'm not going to touch this stuff because the SEC doesn't like it and doesn't want it to happen. Now the SEC has said blatantly that they don't like this and they're only doing it for whatever reasons through the court and other means, but it at least adds some clarity for anyone who was unsure of how they wanted to look at Bitcoin. This gives a little tiny bit of clarity to any of those advisors out there, anyone out there. My boss's mother said basically, like, what is this? She's going to look into it now because she thought it was all a scam until the SEC allowed an ETF to go through. So I think it adds a little bit of legitimacy to the space. I mean,
For the older
even
people.
just the ETF getting approved, that adds a little legitimacy. But the fact that you have Fidelity, which has always been in the space, going out here doing this, they've been proponents of the space, but you have these legacy asset managers that have been trying to do this. Particularly BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world, and you have their CEO on Fox Business and CNBC talking positively about this asset class. It definitely legitimizes the industry. That says the industry does things on a regular basis that, in my opinion, kind of like delegitimizes itself. But that's a different topic for a different day.
Yeah, it's almost like, we're here for decentralization, and then we have a centralized, like, kind of investment product with the ETF. But again, like, this is a permissionless space. So who are we to give or not give permission for somebody to do something? And that's kind of where I come with the whole thing. Am I interested in the ETFs? Not really, because I want to buy the underlying asset so that way I could take self-custody, have peer-to-peer transactions globally 24/7 and without censorship, and most importantly, peer-to-peer. So that's, again, free market. People get to do what they want to do. And then we kind of have, like you said, no sort of regulatory clarity in the US. Other countries are wanting to put out ETFs. They're putting out rules. What is a digital asset? What's a digital asset exchange? What is a wallet? Is it self-hosted? Is it not? And then in the United States, we're kind of left high and dry where we don't even know if Ethereum, technically, under Gary Gensler's little definitions, is a commodity or a security, yet we have ETH ETFs filed. So why are we such a mess?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. We're such a mess for political reasons. That's really what it is. The left wing of the Democratic Party, for the most part, doesn't like this space. And to be honest, there is, like I said, what I was hinting at before is like, there's a lot of things that people in this space have done that is really not a good look. FTX, you name it. There's a lot of rug pulls constantly. It's not a great look. So the crypto industry is probably going to need to do more policing of itself. But at the same time, the political process, Gary Gensler, the SEC, Elizabeth Warren specifically, they are not helping this process along to make things easier or smoother, as far as I'm concerned. But there are a lot of good actors in the space. There also just happens to be a decent amount of bad actors in the space, which is the problem in my view. But that's kind of true of any industry, and also it's worse for crypto because it's easy to trick people with this asset class, and there's a lot of get rich quick schemes. Essentially, everyone saw how quickly the Bitcoin price ran up at different times, and other digital assets, people have made tons of money, and it's easy. It attracts a lot of frauds, essentially scammers. It just draws them into the space.
Yeah, I think also why I think it scares people a little bit is because it's transparent, because we could see everything. So that way, if somebody is doing something wrong, you will find out quite easily, versus the other banks that are actually catching like a lot of fines recently because they're not giving that transparency and they're not really following the rules. And then I think also the volatility point, I think it's shared a lot more in crypto versus like the stock market. Like you saw NYCB drop in half twice, and get halted. So like we see dramatic moves in both markets, but I think in crypto, it's definitely blown up a little bit more. Do you think there's a double standard, or you think I'm crazy?
No, there's a little bit of a double standard. I mean, but it's undoubtedly true that the percentage of frauds and scams happening on in the crypto ecosystem is higher than the percentage of frauds and scams happening in I guess actually, I don't know if I'd say that, but at least it seems a lot bigger and it seems worse. I mean, look at FTX. I mean, that is just a black eye on the entire industry for the most part. Celsius, Voyager, 3 Hours Capital, and then there's also like just straight up outright like tokenized degen rug pull scams out there. And it's just not a good look, is really what it comes down to.
Yeah, and
But
then
there is definitely a bit of a double standard.
yeah, and the FTX thing too. It surprises me that I got that far because Gary Gensler was associated, like, and had all these meetings. So was it skipped over or, I just have so many questions regarding that. And, it's a whole rabbit hole I think we can fall down, but I definitely think that this is such a new space. So I think going through the cycles, every time we're eliminating these bad actors, and I don't think we could have mainstream adoption if we had FTX here, if we had all these people in the ICO phase and all these pump and dumps and whatever there may be. So I think there is a lot of natural selection, but I think it's a part of the growing process in order for the space to mature, see what works, see what doesn't, see what people are gravitated towards and what they're not. And I think it's almost the same in the other markets too, where you see what works, what doesn't, what stocks people are interested in, what kind of, assets, even like gold, that people are interested in now. And, I don't know if you saw, James, they're selling gold in Costco. How do you feel about that? Have you bought Costco gold?
No, but I do. I do have precious metals ETFs in my portfolios, I guess, or my IRA. I do have gold ETFs are a big thing, I guess, but they have about 100 billion in assets in the U.S.
Yeah, it's a lot to choose from. It's a lot, like billions of assets, and then they're like, oh darn crypto, darn crypto. I'm just not sure what the pushback is. Do you think that eventually we're gonna hit mainstream adoption? Do you think that mainstream adoption is possible with crypto? Can you picture it?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the BlackRocks of the world, and there's plenty of other people coming into the space. There's a lot more grown-ups coming to play, I guess you could say, that will help with the Main Street adoption.
Yeah.
It's like, but some of it goes against the ethos of the decentralized nature that a lot of people that drew people into this space. So it'll be interesting to see more bifurcation along those lines. But yeah, I mean, it depends what you're talking about. Are you talking about Bitcoin specifically, or all these other digital assets? You can go down some really wonky rabbit holes here, figuring about it. But I view Bitcoin as a digital store of value for the most part. I view it as a call option and a digital store of value, really even. And there's plenty of other use cases for these other digital assets that are yet to be completely fleshed out. I think you look at the one thing that I think will definitely get Main Street adoption over the coming years, which if they haven't already, is stablecoins. I think stablecoins are the one killer DeFi use case that I can think of that is going to continue to grow as far as I'm concerned. Like if I could invest in one of these stablecoin issuers or just the stablecoin industry in general, I probably would.
Listen, if they went public, I heard Circle wanted to go public, so you might have an opportunity at some point here. And I kind of agree with you. I think stable coins are definitely great for medium of exchange. And I think the United States pushes out stable coins a lot, even though there are some stable coin draft bills, which are a little iffy. If they allow stablecoins, I think it could bring hyper-dollarization. So that way other people that don't have access to the dollar, that are unbanked, could simply just create a wallet and have access to a digital dollar and be able to hold value and transact that way, especially if they're going through massive inflation. Do you see that as a use case as well for the unbanked?
Yeah, for sure. Well, time will tell how it's being used. I mean, you could look at Alex Gladstein, who does a lot of work on this front. Tether, which I'm not going to sit here and defend Tether. They did a lot of sketchy things in the past, but obviously they are one of the most profitable companies in the world right now for whatever reason. I just think that you can't. I'm not going to sit, like I said, I'm not going to defend them and say that nothing went wrong in the past, but you can't deny the use case and the product market fit that things like Tether and Circle and other stable coins have found a product market fit with end users around the globe.
Yeah, especially with Paxos, with PayPal USD, and all of these major institutions are flowing into this space. So definitely, this is going to be mainstream. The digital currency space is obviously taking over. People don't carry cash on them anymore. Do you carry cash on you? Are you a cash guy? Are you a card guy?
I usually have a couple. I don't carry much cash. I carry some cash,
Not as much as you
like a
used
twenty
to.
dollar bill. No. I could get by. I avoid using cash unless I absolutely have to, for the most part. Which I know some of these libertarians out there will tell me I'm crazy, but I'd rather get the points if I can get them for the most part on my credit card.
The
So that's the way I
points.
operate. Yeah.
I love the points, man. And sometimes it's beneficial, but other times it's a little crazy. Like the fees are getting really bad depending on what card you have and all of these types of other things. But definitely people aren't carrying cash anymore. People don't want to touch cash because they're skeeved out by it. So definitely the digital asset space is taking over. And I could tell by the way you tweet too. I mean, why did you decide, besides writing for Bloomberg and being a part of Bloomberg, why did you choose to kind of create your own voice on X and tweet about the ETFs?
So the short answer is my boss had been on Twitter since before I even left college. So he
Wow.
was on FinTwit, as you call it, talking about ETFs in the asset management industry for a decade. And he told me initially when I joined Bloomberg, just go on, get a Twitter, essentially. I already had one. I never really used it. And even if you don't interact with anyone, you can learn a lot from people talking on there. So I learned a lot, and I learned a lot from actually doing my job. And I just saw so many bad takes predominantly out there around the grayscale trust. People had no idea what the hell those things were or how they worked. So I
Exactly.
started initially covering those trusts back in 2017, talking about the fact that the premiums were not guaranteed to stick around and getting told I was spewing FUD and all these different things. So I was covering those trusts predominantly, covering the Bitcoin ETF filings back then. But I didn't really get, people didn't really start following me from the crypto industry for the most part until really when we called for the Bitcoin futures ETFs to be approved in the summer of 2021. And that's when people started paying attention to us. And then our call ended up being correct. And that's when I started getting some followers. And then obviously things blew up when we were calling for the spot Bitcoin ETFs to be approved and ultimately got that call correct. So, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, both for knowledge purposes, and it's kind of like a timestamp of my tweets. So I admit when I'm wrong, and when people start calling things out, I can point back to say, no, I said this was going to happen, or this is how I viewed it at the time. And it just keeps people honest. There's a lot of people out there that like to pontificate about things and they don't really ever give a real answer. So that's one thing we always try to do. And one of the ways we do it is we make bets with people. So we're like, hey, how strongly do you believe in what you're saying? Let's put money on it. Like, you buy me lunch if you're wrong or something like that. So that's something very common that my team and I do. My boss, Eric Balchunas, does with other people around the industry. So it forces people to basically pick a side and not just pontificate on both sides.
I think that's great. You're kind of like the Bloomberg community notes. That like you're coming up to everyone, you're like, no, this is the truth, and this is the truth. And good for you, man, that you're like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go on X. I know what I'm talking about. I'm gonna say something to you, and it's gonna be factual. So that way you could actually give some clarity on the situation. 100%, I noticed that people were tweeting grayscale this, grayscale that, but literally made 0 cents. And then everyone would be like, you know what? Let's go look at James's tweet. Between you and Eleanor Terrett and Eric, your boss, and a few others, there's really not a lot of people that could get the cold hard facts and that are really truthful on the platform without like spewing the pontification that you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, we pontificate a decent amount, but for the most part, I've been lucky enough. I mean, like I said, these ETFs and this coverage here that's happened recently, like, it's very rare that like two things that overlap that you actually know very well like fall squarely in your lap. And I basically decided that we were gonna own this and make sure we made our calls loudly and strongly and made our voices and our opinions known on the topic and let the chips fall where they may. I mean, I'll tell you, when on January 10th, when we weren't sure if these things were going to get approved or not, leading up to that, I mean, sleeping was not great because if we didn't get those ETF approvals after how vocal we were and confident we were in our calls that it was going to happen, there was like this little doubt in the back of my mind that I was just terrified we were going to be wrong. But man, it was a relief that we were right. And yeah, is part hard. Like, we worked hard to really understand what was going on. We worked hard to build relationships with these people filing for these things. We know people at the SEC. We have a lot of different people that we can talk to. And it was part of it was hard work, but part of it was just luck. Like this huge thing that so many people cared about happened to be an area where I was a genuine expert in what was going on for the most part. And even still, I don't know everything. There's plenty of people that I have to ask for help on, but broadly speaking, I could talk more to exactly what was going on than many other random, particularly anonymous accounts on Twitter trying to make calls and pontificate on what was going on.
100%. I think what you're doing is very important. And as you guys are smashing the likes and obviously sharing the stream out with friends, we're almost like 100 likes. It kind of like, blows my mind on how Twitter is the new social square, where it's a global town square, I think is what they like to call it on X. Do you believe that to be true with what you've seen? Because it's real-time news, and we even see the mainstream media sometimes is a few hours behind what's going on X.
Regularly, the mainstream media is out, but that's partially because of just the way the mainstream media works. You have to write a story, then it has to go to an editor. I have to deal with this. So there's things that I know and that I want to talk about on Twitter, but I can't really tweet because my job first and foremost is to write for Bloomberg. So sometimes when things are happening really fast, we just have to tweet it out and just talk about it. But there are other times where we're doing things and I have to basically write about this for Bloomberg, and then I can tweet about it like a few hours after it's already been published. So there's a huge gap there. But I do agree. Twitter/X is my favorite social media app. It's where I get all of my news. It's where I interact. Like I said, I can timestamp my takes and views on different topics. So I am a huge fan. That said, it's definitely gone a little bit downhill over the last couple of years. Bots are pretty bad, though not as bad as they used to be. Personally, impersonators all over the place are really frustrating to deal with. So there's a whole host of things that I hope Elon will fix, but I do really feel like it's heading in the right direction. I just wish that people that constantly talk negatively about it would give it a chance. I think largely it's a product of how you curate who you follow and who follows you and things like that determine what your experience is. I've had plenty of really negative experiences over the last couple of years on there, but for the most part, it's a net positive for me. There's this tweet from one of Morgan Housel, who's he's in the FinTwit space, and he said basically Twitter makes you twice as knowledgeable and about half as productive. So that's the way I feel about it. So for the most part, I have to be like, all right, I need to not look at Twitter for a little while. But overall, I'm obviously a huge fan and huge user, and will continue to use it for as long as it's a viable option for me.
That's beautiful. So listen, I got to ask you, because you're in Jersey and I know you're in New York a lot because you work for Bloomberg. You go to all these meetings. What's your favorite place to eat?
Was not expecting that. Ironically, my favorite restaurant right now is actually a restaurant in Philadelphia called Butcher and Singer. It's a steakhouse. I'm a big steak guy. I've been to a couple of really nice steakhouses in New York City, and still my best experiences have been at Butcher and Singer in Philadelphia. Yeah, that's my number one restaurant right now, I guess I'd say. I also am a huge fan of Taco Bell, but that's a completely different tier of restaurant.
That's like one extreme to the other right there. Like Taco Bell is ooh, and then
I'm
you
a
got
man of
steak
multiples.
No, listen, you gotta be simple yet sometimes bougie. I mean, what are you ordering at the steakhouse? What are we ordering right now?
Just steak, just a Delmonico,
like a T-bone or
ribeye.
Ribeye
of some sort usually is my go-to.
Ooh, and they give you the sides with it, like the potatoes and everything.
Exactly.
Oh.
Yep, 100% Brussels sprouts. I love roasted Brussels sprouts.
Ooh.
I'm a big fan of vegetables for the most part.
A veggie guy. You got to stay healthy. See, this is why you're a track star, is because you eat your veggies and you're nice and big and strong.
Former
Listen, what are you doing now? You're resting your leg. You're going to get it going. And then what are you doing? You're hitting the road, James, and you're going to run.
Yes.
And you're going to make sure you're healthy. Okay? No, it's something we're holding you to now, because you got to stay healthy. I like to hit the gym. We talk about fitness a lot on the channel because it's so important, and it helps with the mental, it helps with the physical, it helps us live a long life to see the revolution of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. And I want to make sure everyone can find you. So where can everyone go and follow you, James? Do you have an Instagram? Because I tried to find it. I couldn't find it before.
I do have an Instagram actually, but I don't post anything about Twitter on there. The number one, I mean about Bitcoin or crypto on there for the most part.
Okay.
My Twitter is JSEYFF. That's where most of my takes are. I'm obviously on LinkedIn as well. I very rarely post there. James Seyffart. And then honestly, It's doubtful, but if anyone has a Bloomberg terminal, that's where all of my real research and data is put out. But I do share a decent amount of it on Twitter. And then my Instagram is JSeyffs, JSEYFFS. I really should.
FFS.
I've been debating posting a little bit more there with Threads, the competitor to Twitter. But I have some colleagues who started posting a lot more on there. But for the most part, where you'll find me with most of my immediate takes, real live updates on what's going on, as much as I can, will be on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Okay, because I wanted to make sure, because I was trying to find your Instagram before and I couldn't find it. So I'll ask you again for the handle after. I hope everyone picked that up. But in the description,
JSEYFFS.
Oh, SEYFFS. Okay, I got you. And then, all right, so in the live chat and in the description for right now, we have your X and your LinkedIn for people to come and follow. So you guys could check that out whenever you would like, but make sure you guys give James a follow because he's extremely knowledgeable, always on the beat with what's going on, and a really cool person. Like, I'm so happy I got to know you today. Is there any closing message you would like to give people? It could be about stake, it could be about track, it could be about crypto, Bloomberg, the ETFs, whatever is on your mind, whatever's in your heart. Let it out for us, James.
Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing that I would say is kind of what most of echo what we talked about. One, for me, exercising fitness is what keeps me both physically and mentally stable, I guess you will, mentally fit. That said, one of the things I constantly get back from is that people don't like the ETFs. They don't like what they're doing. Look, the ETFs aren't changing what you can and cannot do with Bitcoin or any other digital assets when we ultimately get ETFs for other assets in years down the line. We could see Ethereum this year. That's the one thing I would add, but our odds are around 60 to 65% that we get an Ethereum ETF this year by sometime in May, potentially. Obviously, those odds are nowhere near as high as our 90% odds with spot Bitcoin, but we'll be watching. But yeah, basically, the ETFs don't change anything about what you can and cannot do with Bitcoin. As you said, it's a free market. Let the free market decide where they want to put their money. It just makes it easier for certain people to get access to this asset class, even if they can't use it on chain the way it was meant. It is going to be stored, and it gives them ability to get exposure to the price of these digital assets. And it's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a net win. We have a lot of these companies marketing their butts off, spending a lot of money trying to market Bitcoin to the masses. So if you're a believer in the space, you should welcome them as a positive thing. Even if you tell people you'd prefer if they held their own Bitcoin, not your keys, not your coins, what have you. But that said, like I said, and like you said, it's a free market.
Absolutely. Free market shows you a lot. And we're going to see where everyone goes, what the emotions are like. And most importantly, we're going to make sure we educate people on self-sovereignty. So if you enjoyed this show, make sure you smash the like, subscribe, share the stream out with friends so more people can learn about James. I'll see you guys Monday through Friday at 9:45 a.m. Eastern for the Daily Zest, where we talk about news, TA, and everything you need to know about crypto. Have an amazing day, a happy Friday, and as always, stay zesty. Peace.